Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be diving deep into creative financing in real estate.
Okay.
A lot of you out there want to learn how to turn financial challenges into opportunities.
Right.
So we went and found an interview with Chris Thompson.
Okay.
He's a real estate expert, and he's been doing this for 18 years.
Yeah, Chris has an impressive track record in the D.C. metro area.
Wow.
He's done a lot. He's a realtor, property manager, investor, and even a mentor.
That's awesome.
And get this, he sold 97 houses in 2020 alone.
Wow. 97 houses.
Yeah, but here's what I think is really interesting is how he changed his approach
Okay.
when the market cooled down.
Okay.
He had 5 traditional rentals, but then he got 20 properties.
Wow.
And most of those he got through creative financing.
So it wasn't using like bank loans or the traditional routes?
He was finding other ways to get the money.
So tell me more about this creative financing thing.
Well, it's basically finding ways to get financing outside of the traditional methods.
Okay.
And one of the advantages is flexibility, and you can potentially get higher returns.
Okay, so it's about thinking outside the box and tailoring deals to meet everyone's needs.
Right. And, one of Chris's strategies is working with wholesalers.
Wholesaler.
Yeah, they're those real estate pros who find sellers and connect them with buyers.
Ah, so he's using their network to find potential deals.
Exactly. And instead of just buying leads from them, he partners with them.
Oh, interesting. How does it work?
Well, he forms joint ventures or JVs with wholesalers.
Okay.
So it gives him access to pre-qualified leads, which saves him a ton of time and effort.
Ah, I see.
And the wholesaler benefits too because they close more deals and they learn new skills.
So it's a win-win for both of them.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what kinds of creative financing strategies does Chris use with these wholesalers?
He uses a bunch, but 3 stand out.
Okay.
Subject to seller financing and wraps.
Okay, let's start with subject 2. What is that?
Okay. Imagine someone needs to sell their house quickly, but they owe more on the mortgage than the house is worth.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. That's tough.
So Chris might buy the property subject to the existing mortgage.
Okay.
So he takes over the payments while the seller still legally owns the house.
So he's kind of stepping into the seller's shoes.
Yeah, and it can be a good deal when interest rates are rising like they are now.
Okay.
Because he gets to keep the lower interest rate on the existing loan.
Right.
That means potentially higher cash flow compared to getting a new loan.
Okay, but there's got to be some risks with that, right?
Oh, for sure. You have to carefully review the loan terms and make sure the seller's been making their payments.
Makes sense. So what about seller financing? I've heard of that, but I don't really know how it works.
So basically, the seller acts like the bank.
Oh.
They provide the financing directly to the buyer.
Okay, so instead of going to a bank, you go to the seller.
Exactly. And for the seller, this can be good.
Yeah.
Because they might be able to defer some taxes.
Okay.
And get some passive income from the loan payments.
Well, that's a good deal.
And for the buyer, it can mean more flexible terms and maybe a lower down payment.
Interesting. So they both benefit in different ways.
Right. It's about finding a solution that works for everyone.
Okay, now what about these wraps that you mentioned?
Yeah.
They sound a bit more complicated?
Yeah, they can be a little tricky.
Okay, so how do they work?
Basically, you create a new mortgage that wraps around an existing mortgage.
Okay. I'm not sure I follow.
So let's say a property has a really low interest rate on the existing mortgage.
Okay.
And the buyer wants to keep that low rate.
Yeah.
A wrap could be the solution.
Okay, but how?
So the buyer would make payments to the seller.
Okay.
And then the seller uses those payments to pay off the original mortgage.
Ah, so it's like a chain of payments.
Right. And it can help people get financing when a traditional loan might not work.
Okay, these wraps sound like they need a lot of expertise to set up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Chris always says you need to work with experienced professionals.
Yeah, like real estate attorneys and title companies.
Yeah, to make sure everything's done right.
Makes sense. So we've talked about subject to, seller financing, and wraps.
Right.
They all seem to have their own advantages.
Yeah, it depends on the situation.
What stands out to you about Chris's approach to these strategies?
Well, what I find interesting is that he really focuses on understanding people's motivations.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about finding solutions that benefit everyone involved.
He's not just looking for loopholes or trying to outsmart anyone.
Right. He wants to create win-win situations.
Okay. But even with his experience, I'm sure he's had some challenges along the way.
Oh, absolutely. He's very open about the fact that he hasn't always succeeded.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, he had a tough experience with private money lending.
What happened?
He says he didn't do enough due diligence.
Oh, so he didn't thoroughly research the deal.
Right, and it ended up costing him.
So even seasoned investors make mistakes.
Definitely.
How did he handle that setback?
Well, instead of getting discouraged, he looked at it as a learning opportunity.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
And he actually ended up owning the properties involved.
Really?
He kind of sees it as an overpayment that will pay off eventually.
Wow, so he turned a potential failure into a long-term investment.
Yeah, he's got a really resilient mindset.
That's impressive.
Hmm.
So what other advice does Chris have for people who are new to real estate investing?
Well, he says it's really important to find a supportive community.
Okay.
He credits Pace Morby's subto community with
Yeah.
giving him the guidance and support he needed.
Ah, the power of community.
Right. It's like having a built-in network of people who understand what you're going through.
Yeah, you can learn from each other and share experiences.
Exactly. And Chris also emphasizes the importance of continuous learning.
Okay, so it's not enough to just join a community. You have to be actively learning and growing.
Right. He talks about spending hours studying training materials and absorbing information.
Wow, so he's really dedicated to his craft.
Oh, yeah. He's always looking for ways to improve his skills and knowledge.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
So what specific advice does he give for staying ahead of the curve?
He encourages people to find their own tribe,
Okay.
whether it's online or in person.
Okay.
It's about connecting with people who share your passion for real estate.
Yeah, and who can offer different perspectives and experiences.
Exactly.
So Chris is a big believer in collaboration and shared knowledge.
Absolutely.
It's not just about learning from experts, but learning from your peers as well.
Right.
And he embodies that collaborative spirit, not only in his partnerships with wholesalers, but also in his own mentorship. Speaking of mentorship, I'm curious to hear more about his approach to helping others.
Well, he focuses on empowering his mentees,
Okay.
giving them the tools and the mindset to succeed on their own.
So he's not just giving them answers, he's teaching them how to fish.
Right. He guides them through the process, helps them develop problem-solving skills,
Okay.
and encourages them to embrace failure as part of the journey.
He sounds like a fantastic mentor.
He is, and he uses powerful analogies to illustrate his points.
Oh, I love a good analogy. Give me an example.
Well, he compares the real estate journey to the journey of Michael Jordan.
Interesting. How so?
He says that what made Jordan a legend wasn't just his talent.
Okay.
It was his relentless pursuit of self-improvement.
I see.
He wasn't focused on competing with others.
Okay.
He was focused on being better than he was yesterday.
So it's a growth mindset.
Exactly. Focus on your own progress and development, and the success will follow.
That's a valuable lesson for any field, not just real estate.
Absolutely. And that's the mindset Chris tries to instill in his mentees.
That's awesome.
Mm.
This emphasis on mentorship and community building is really inspiring.
Yeah, it shows that success isn't just about individual achievement.
Right.
It's about lifting each other up and creating a more supportive environment.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of support, how does Chris actually structure these creative financing deals?
Well, he uses a variety of methods, but let's start with subjectto.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the specifics.
It can be a really advantageous strategy in certain situations.
Okay, let's unpack it, see how it works in the real world.
All right.
I'm all ears.
Okay, cool. Okay, so remember when we talked about that homeowner who needs to sell their house fast,
Yeah.
but they owe more on the mortgage than the house is worth?
Yeah, that's a tough
That's
thing
where
to...
subjectto can really help.
Okay.
Chris might step in and take over their mortgage payments.
Okay.
That way the seller doesn't get foreclosed on, and
Right.
Chris gets to control the property.
So he's basically taking on their debt.
Yeah, but there's a strategy to it.
Okay.
Like, let's say interest rates have gone way up since the seller got their mortgage.
Yeah, that's happening a lot now.
Chris could take over that loan with the lower interest rate.
Right, that's locked in.
Exactly.
It's a good deal for him.
It could be,
Yeah.
especially compared to getting a new loan at a higher rate.
Right, because those interest rates are going up and up.
Yeah, so it could make a big difference in his cash flow.
That makes sense. But I'm guessing there's a lot of research involved before jumping into something like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely due diligence is key.
Right.
You got to really check out those loan terms.
Yeah, make sure everything's on the up and up.
Exactly. Make sure the seller hasn't missed any payments or anything like that.
Right.
There's always some risk,
Always.
but that's part of the game.
Okay, so subjectto is all about understanding the details of that existing mortgage.
Right.
Now, what about seller financing?
So with seller financing, you're basically cutting out the bank.
Okay.
The seller acts as the lender.
Interesting. So instead of going to a bank for a loan,
Yeah.
you go straight to the seller.
Right. And it can be a win-win
Okay, I'm listening.
for the seller.
Yeah.
It can be a way to maybe lower their tax burden
Okay.
and get a steady stream of income.
Ah, like passive income
Right.
from those loan payments.
And for the buyer,
Yeah.
it often means more flexible terms
Okay.
and maybe a smaller down payment.
So it's kind of a customized loan agreement
Yeah.
between the buyer and seller?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
But wouldn't it be complicated to set that up?
Well, it definitely takes some careful planning.
Yeah.
You got to have a solid agreement between both parties.
Right.
You need to agree on the payment schedule, a fair interest rate, all those details.
Yeah, make sure everyone's protected.
Exactly.
Sounds like it takes a lot of trust on both sides.
It does, but that's what makes it work.
Okay, so we've covered subject to and seller financing.
Right.
Now for the big one.
The grand finale.
Wraps.
Yeah, wraps can be a little more complex.
Yeah, they sound pretty intricate from what you've said so far.
Okay, so imagine a property
All right.
that has an existing mortgage with a super low interest rate,
Okay.
like something you couldn't find on the market today.
Right.
A wrap could let the buyer take advantage of that low rate.
So instead of getting a new mortgage at a much higher rate,
Right.
they use the existing one.
Exactly. They wrap their financing around it.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
So basically, the buyer makes payments to the seller,
Right.
and then the seller keeps making payments on that original mortgage.
Oh, so it's like a chain of payments.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see why this would need some legal expertise.
Oh, definitely.
I wouldn't want to try this without a lawyer.
You need someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Chris has all these creative financing tools in his belt.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options.
It sounds like he's really good at finding solutions that most people wouldn't even think of.
Yeah, he's a creative thinker.
What do you think is the key to his success with these strategies?
I think it's that he doesn't see them as tricks or loopholes.
Okay.
He sees them as legitimate ways to make deals that work for everyone.
So he's not trying to take advantage of anyone.
No, he's looking for win-win situations.
I like that. It's a very collaborative approach.
Yeah, he's not just in it for himself.
But even with all his experience, I'm sure he's hit some roadblocks along the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's had his share of setbacks.
What's an example?
Well, he often talks about his experience with private money lending.
Yeah, he mentioned that earlier.
He jumped into a deal without doing enough research.
He didn't do his due diligence.
And it ended up costing him.
So even the experts make mistakes.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah, it's all about learning from those mistakes.
Exactly. And Chris is great at that.
So how did he handle that private money lending situation?
Well, he didn't let it get him down.
Okay.
He actually ended up buying the properties involved.
Right.
He kind of sees it as an expensive lesson.
Oh.
Mm.
So he turned a potential failure into a long-term investment.
Yeah, he's got a really positive outlook.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So what other advice does Chris have for people who are just getting started in real estate?
Well, he always says it's so important to find your people.
Your people.
Yeah, your tribe.
Okay.
Find a community of like-minded people who can support you.
Right, because it can be a tough business.
It can be, and having that support system makes a big difference.
So where can people find their tribe?
Well, Chris recommends Pace Morby's subto community.
Okay, I've heard of that.
It's a great place to connect with other investors.
Yeah, and learn from each other.
Exactly.
So community is key.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to just join a group and sit back and relax.
No, you got to be proactive.
Right. You got to be willing to put in the work.
Chris talks about spending hours studying and learning.
Yeah.
He's constantly trying to improve his skills.
That's inspiring.
Hmm.
So what does he recommend for people who want to stay ahead of the game?
He says find your own tribe.
Oh, okay. We talked about that.
But it's not just about online communities.
Right.
Get out there and network.
Go to events, meet people in person.
Exactly. Build those relationships.
So it's a mix of online and offline networking.
Yeah, and always be open to learning new things.
So Chris is all about collaboration and shared knowledge.
Yeah, he believes that we can achieve more together than we can alone.
I love that philosophy.
Mm.
And he puts it into practice not just with his partnerships, but with his mentorship too.
Right. He's always willing to help others.
Speaking of mentorship, I'm curious about his approach.
Well, he's all about empowering his mentees,
Okay.
giving them the tools and the mindset to succeed.
So he's not just handing them the answers,
No, he's teaching them how to think for themselves.
how to solve problems,
Right. And he encourages them to embrace those setbacks.
to see failure as part of the process.
Exactly. He wants them to learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, it's so important.
And he's great at using analogies to make his points.
Oh, I love analogies.
Yeah.
What's one of his favorites?
He often compares the real estate journey to the career of Michael Jordan.
Interesting. How's that work?
Well, he says that Jordan didn't become a legend by just focusing on beating his opponents.
Okay.
It was his dedication to constant improvement.
So it's about always striving to be better.
Exactly, and not comparing yourself to others.
Focus on your own progress.
Right.
That's a great lesson for any field, really.
It is, and that's the mindset Chris tries to instill in his mentees.
I love that this whole emphasis on mentorship and community is really inspiring.
It is. It shows that success isn't just about individual achievement.
Right.
It's about helping each other and creating a more supportive environment.
Exactly. So how does Chris actually structure these creative financing deals?
Well, he uses a lot of different methods.
Okay.
But let's focus on subject 2 for a minute.
All right. I'm ready to dive into the specifics.
Okay, great.
Yeah. It's really cool how he combines being good with money and building a strong community.
Yeah. He's not all about profits.
Right.
He genuinely wants to help people, which you can see with how much he loves mentoring.
We did talk about his mentorship before,
Yeah.
but I want to dig a little deeper into that.
Okay.
What makes his style of mentoring so different?
I think it's how he really wants to empower new investors.
Okay.
He doesn't just tell them what to do, you know?
Right.
He helps them learn how to think for themselves.
So they can find their own solutions.
Exactly. That's awesome. And he's always saying that you're going to mess up sometime.
You're going to have setbacks.
Yeah.
That's just part of it.
And he wants his mentees to learn from those mistakes.
It's like that saying, you got to fall down to know how to get back up.
Mm.
I think that's what separates the successful people from the ones who quit.
Totally.
So how does Chris teach them to handle those tough times?
He uses a lot of real life examples
Okay.
and analogies.
Ooh, I love a good analogy.
He loves to tell the story of Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Okay.
Yeah, to show how to make it in real estate.
Okay, I'm listening.
So he's like, Jordan wasn't the best just because he was naturally talented or athletic. It was because he always wanted to get better.
He was always pushing himself.
Yeah, and he never gave up.
So it's not about beating other people.
No, it's about being better than you were yesterday.
So focus on your own progress.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
That's such an important lesson.
For anything, really, not just real estate.
Definitely.
And that's the kind of thinking Chris wants his mentees to have.
He wants them to grow and learn and keep going.
I think it's really cool how he's so dedicated to mentoring.
He too.
It shows how much he believes in community,
Yeah.
helping other people.
He's not just trying to be successful on his own.
Right. He wants to bring other people up with him.
And he's making the whole real estate world a better place.
Yeah, by being so supportive and inclusive.
He sees it as giving back.
Paying it forward.
Yeah, and making the world a better place.
Chris's story is so inspiring.
It is.
He's found a way to be really good at business, but also stay connected to people.
Yeah, he's proven that you can do both.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what are some of the big things you hope people will remember from Chris's story?
I hope they see that anyone can make it in real estate
Yeah.
if they have the right attitude and they're willing to put in the effort.
And they find the right people to support them.
Exactly.
Chris is proof that you can do things differently
Mm-hmm.
and still be really successful.
Yeah, and you can help other people while you're at it.
That's what I love about his
You
story.
too.
It's not just about making money, it's about making a difference.
Exactly.
I think the biggest thing I've learned from Chris is that real estate is about people.
Yeah.
It's about building relationships and trust.
And finding solutions that work for everyone.
So if you're feeling inspired by Chris's story,
Yeah.
remember what he said? Keep learning,
Keep exploring.
building those connections.
And whatever you do,
Don't give up.
this deep dive has given us a little peek into Chris's world.
Yeah.
We saw how creative financing works and what it takes to succeed in real estate.
Now it's your turn.
What are you going to do?
What strategies will you try?
How are you going to make your mark?
Remember, success in real estate isn't about reaching the finish line.
It's about the journey.
And if you have the right mindset, you can get through anything.
You can achieve your dreams.